Hello everyone. So I've made another step forward in my project to recreate a game that I saw at Salute way back in the 1980s. It was put on by the Staines Wargaming Club, and it basically represented the siege of the legations in Peking in 1900 during the Boxer Rebellion. Always stayed in my mind, and a year or so ago, my interest in the Boxer Rebellion was reawakened, and I decided I would, sort of set my ambitions, my aims to eventually put a table together that reproduced that game as best I could, and I've been helped by various articles in back issues of magazines that I've collected for years and have saved. Principal one being issue number 30 of Miniature War Games in November 1985, and no colour photos unfortunately, but plenty of maps and the rules for the game and so on. And you're required to produce for the British contingent 15 Royal Marine light infantry figures and a Nordenfelt machine gun on a wheeled carriage. Now, here you see in front of you, I think it's 20 Royal Marine figures, a Nordenfelt gun, and another figure representing the British ambassador, who was Claude MacDonald at the time. So the ranges are two ranges on the left from the Nordenfelt. From the Nordenfelt gun leftwards, these are all redoubt figures, and then from the ambassador to the right, those are all victorious miniatures. Let's just zoom in a little bit now, starting in the middle, so that I can make a comment about how the two scales, the two ranges, I think match really well. I was quite surprised because I have got figures from Redoubt in other ranges, principally the Anglo-Zulu War. I've also got French Foreign Legion figures from them, and those figures always seem to outscale the other figures I have with them, particularly the Anglo-Zulu War figures, alongside Empress and Wargames Foundry. They dwarf them, they absolutely dwarf them. But here you have difficulty distinguishing them. The poses are reasonably similar, and the size is completely compatible. So good news in that respect. The Redoubt figures, let's go in over this side a little bit, maybe zoom in a little bit more if I can get it to focus. The Redoubt figures are actually probably a little bit more historically accurate. I've painted all these figures on both websites. They've got painted examples of the figures, and on both websites they've chosen to paint them up with the marine blue tunic. Now, I wanted them to have the appearance of being dressed in the tropical whites. My own conception is that the Marines defending the legations in Peking did dress in tropical whites. Haven't really got much evidence to support that. There are some black and white photos of the Marines, and they're certainly dressed down, which you would expect to see after a long siege. But they don't seem to be wearing any dark coloured jackets or tunics or anything like that. They're all in light coloured clothing. The famous film 55 Days at Peking, the Marines in that are all dressed in tropical whites. Illustrations in the Osprey campaign series book on the Boxer Rebellion show the Marines fighting on the in the legation area in whites as well. So that was what I wanted to reproduce. In terms of the historical accuracy, though, of the figures, I would say Redoubt are closer to historical accuracy, mainly in that the tunics, which you won't be able to see on these figures at this distance, but they have the blue marine tunic had a red braided collar pad, and the collar pads on these tunics are certainly braided, but I've sort of ignored that fact and painted them up as white. The Victorious miniature ones have a flat collar pad or strap or whatever you want to call it. So maybe that's intended to be the tropical white uniform. Not entirely sure, or maybe it's an error and they should have put some sort of braided detail on it. But either way, having painted them blue on their website, and they've painted the collars, the shoulder pads red, so they are interpreting them as though they were the red braided shoulder straps. So anyway, I've ignored all that and gone for a more or less uniform kind of tropical white appearance, apart from the marine officer from Victorious Miniatures, who's wearing a more of a sort of naval looking attire, and the ambassador figure on Victorious Miniatures website, they've painted him up with a sort of blue tunic. Not entirely sure what that is meant to represent in any event, because during the siege, it's well documented that he wore civilian clothing. So I've chosen to paint him up as though he's wearing a sort of army uniform, and giving him a red jacket, because he did have previous military service, but he was in the 74th Highland Regiment, Highland Light Infantry, I think they became. So anyway, I've given him a sort of red jacket, blue trousers. He's in a pretty sort of generic style dress anyway, and he is going to be in the game that you require quite a lot of civilian character figures anyway, so he's just going to be in with that mix. We're probably years off getting this game completed. I am working quite hard at the buildings. In a short while, not too long, I should be able to show you one of my achievements in that respect in a future video. But yeah, really enjoyed painting these figures. Great fun. More than I require for the game as it's intended, but I suppose I can always be playing games of Many Would Be Kings or something like that with them. Not much else to say about them really. The other difference between Victorious Miniatures and Redoubt that allows you to distinguish them is that the Victorious miniature rifles all have slings, whereas the rifles for the Redoubt figures are unslung. Anyway, that's it. That's a little update on what I've been getting on with, and see you on the next video. Bye for now.